All right. Well, welcome.
Recording in progress.
Let me got it. Welcome to the Small Firm Exchange orientation. The Small Firm Exchange began in 2015. It is a member group. And if you were anything like me, you would have the question of what is a member group? So AIA has what are known as knowledge committees and member groups. And the member groups have to do with a curated topic. So our particular member group is small firms. And the goal of it is to have online tools, an online forum, and any resource collection that would be pertinent to small firms. And what you'll see going on is that we'll talk a bit over the year about the practice of architecture as a small firm, and then some advocacy for small firms at both AIA national and at the local level. So the AIA has a new strategic plan that they're working off right now, and we fall under the practice bubble. And Kathleen, our AIA liaison, had some comments on this as to where she thought we should really be, but I think this makes sense. And this just gives you a high level overview. And I apologize for the quality, but I copied this straight from the AIA's website. So the strategic plan for that we're currently in, you can see up at the top that there's some goals here. And the way that we fit within this is we're sort of, in the practice, but we are also a member group. We are not a knowledge community. And the big difference there is knowledge communities oftentimes, host their own conferences or gatherings, and they host webinars, and they do a bit more, I would say, action-oriented thing. Now, what I've learned since being a part of this is that varies. And as a practice member group, what we do varies. And as Janet said, we're in kind of this evolution step. And so I think we're all really excited. Last year was new. And so this year, I think we're all excited to get some action going. So the strategic plan imperatives are around climate action, the role of the architect, research and technology, architectural education, and equity. And so I'll share this after if you want to read through these, but essentially AIA's planning has impacted us this year in a few ways that we'll get into later. But really this idea of education, we're hoping to have some additional get-togethers at AIA National, and that's really based around the strategic plan to get people to attend more of the AIA events. So that's the thing that really impacts us most for this year. So Janet went through our mission. I'll just read the highlighted things: advocating the value of small firms, which it sounds like everyone's excited about, curating and disseminating resources, information, and then informing the AIA of current issues. And so the informing is the work group that I'm hoping to lead up this year around advocacy, but it's that feedback loop back up to AIA National or any other architectural organization. Also, I think there's potential with informing, governmental agencies when appropriate as well for things that are issues that we're facing. So AIA Firm Demographics, this is from 2020, so it's obviously changing. I started my firm in mid-2020 as a part of sort of the great resignation. I was at a larger firm. And so I imagine these numbers, when they're redone, I imagine that there will be, this is if I was a betting person, I will bet to say that there will be more small firms in the near future. And a small firm is defined as a firm that has less than 10 full-time equivalent employees. And so what we see here is that of all of the firms, small firms make up 75%. However, the share of staff, meaning, the number of full-time employees, looked at all architectural employees in the country, small firms make up just 18%. And so even though that's true, and this is the one that kind of got our board, small firms only make up 13% of the billings in the profession. So the comments around how do we advocate to get small firms in the door for larger projects is a real one, because there is a lot of financial inequity, I would say, going to larger firms in terms of project type. So of the small firm size breakdown, so of the 75% of firms, sole proprietors are 26.8%, 2 to 4, 33.4, and 5 to 9, 15%. This doesn't add up correctly. I don't know why, but Kathleen, I'm sure, can tell us later. I wasn't going to challenge it. But one thing I want you all to know is when we were looking at having people join the state rep group, we did look at making sure we had good representation of this size breakdown, because that is important. I think a sole proprietor is going to have, slightly different needs than a firm of 9 who might have ambitions of growing larger. So we do hope that we have a good cross-section of you all. And let's see. So this is also from 2020. This is licensed architects by resident state. And the ones in blue are the ones that we have representation on the board. And we're trying to have representation on the board constantly because they make up the largest percentage of people, representing small firms. So, we took kind of a Senate approach. And so this will also get updated. All right. So last year, we aimed to work on communication flow. It was in our inaugural year of the board and state representative structure. And we really worked hard to recruit state representatives. So, and I'm going to actually skip ahead really fast. So this is what our 2022 state representative makeup looked like. So everything in blue was missing state representatives. So I'm going to really quickly just do a quick little welcome roll call, because we were able to add Maine, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, let's see, Georgia, I think, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Dakota, who I recruited. I'm going to give myself, I was a South Dakota rep. I've never been to South Dakota. I knew nothing about it. So Keith, I'm glad you're here. Let's see, Missouri, Idaho. Who else do we got? Puerto Rico. So, and there might be a few more. I wrote them all down and then I jumped around. So I apologize if I missed you, but I want to just pat ourselves on the back for last year. That was a goal. And we made big strides in getting representation. You can see, we were missing a lot of the center of the country. And that I think matters in terms of not just representation geographically, but there are going to be issues that are different all around. And one of the most amazing things about being on this board is that it's an education, and it is an absolute delight to learn and meet all of you all. So that was last year. So what's missing from right here, and what we're hoping, are some action items. This took a little bit of work recruiting state representatives, but all in all, it kind of felt like getting our feet under us last year. So the SFX team, we've got an executive committee, which we'll go through when we do kind of the introductions of certain topics later. We've got board members. We currently have 19. The maximum we would ever have is 25. And then state representatives, there are 53 quote unquote states. So that includes every, state in the continental US, as well as Puerto Rico. DC, Guam, and the Virgin Islands, I believe. Okay, so our 2023 state reps, I already went through this. We'll update this graphic, but it'll be a lot more yellow, which will be great. And the state reps from the 8 permanent board seats, those are the ones that were highlighted as having the greatest percentage of small firms, are sort of a constant. And the state rep position is a minimum 1-year commitment. You then can apply to become a board member if you so choose. You need to be a licensed architect or become an AIA member, and then be a small firm owner or leader. So you can have this position for a maximum of 5 years. This is new, so nobody here is even close to that. So we're still all sort of starting at a good place. Joshua, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm curious. So coming from a state, New Jersey, that, at one point, we were the 6th largest, had the 6th most architects in our state, and now I think we've dropped down from that. The 8 permanent seats, are those permanent to those states moving forward, or are they going to change based on the number of people in the states?
They'll definitely change in terms of updated numbers. That was asked in the chat. I'm not sure of the regularity of that research or polling. I don't know, Kathleen, if you know, but I would assume that it would ebb and flow based on however often the AIA performs that analysis. Kathleen, do you want to chime in on that?
I do. Those numbers were actually created by a past chair, Matt Clapper, based on a combination of NCARB and AIA data. So we should periodically look at that. But he did actually blend multiple sources of data.
Awesome. So add it to the list, right? Things to do. So your responsibilities, and please raise your hand. I've got both the chat and the little gallery view, so I can see if you raise your hand. So please raise your hand if you have questions as we go along. So the state rep responsibilities, these are pretty straightforward. It's participating in the monthly calls. And we'll go through the overall schedule of the year, but monthly you'll have a state rep call. And then we are looking at an all call, and the all call, and this is one of those things I wish I had known. The all call is when we have state reps, board members, and then we have a representative or representatives from another AIA group that comes and gives us some sort of education. This is a very broad way to say it. And when we go through the calendar, you'll see some of the intentions for this year. But what the all call really is an opportunity for education. It's also an opportunity for us to gain resources that we can then share with the communities and states that we serve. Now, a lesson learned from last year is those all calls resulted in amazing conversation and oftentimes did not result in a tangible deliverable that could be shared. And so that is one of the goals for this year, is to be able to streamline communication from those all calls, which are very fulfilling and rewarding experiences, into a output that can be shared easily. We want to make this easy and also streamline it a bit. So the second responsibility is facilitating SFX local chapters. Now, some people will find this very easy. Other people will find this very challenging. It depends on your state structure. It also, I think, depends on how your state is just in terms of kind of firm makeup. So for instance, when I met with South Dakota last year, I believe, Keith, what we had discussed was most of South Dakota is small firms, right? So does it need to have local chapters? No, because there's not like a chapter system. And so it is going to be customized. It could also be something that isn't achieved just based on the culture of your state. So we do understand that, but it is the attempt to create a local small firm exchange.
Also, Dana, remember we last year Jen worked on a document that outlines how to do that. It gives a guideline for how to actually create an SFX chapter.
Yep.
We do have some resources we can share eventually with you guys about that we did gather from last year.
Yeah. So new is this send all call content to state member network. So that is something we're really hoping to be able to facilitate this year. And then serve as a conduit between local small firm groups and AIA National. So this is soliciting feedback. This is soliciting ideas or information and then running it back up the chain. And then optional, we're opening up this year our work groups, which previously were just for board members. We are going to open those up to state reps if there's a work group that is that interests you and that you have a particular passion around. And then giving SFX presentations or sessions at state and regional conferences. So that's something I paired up with the state rep from Colorado last year, and we did a session at the Colorado State Practice and Design Conference. It was super rewarding. It wasn't specific. It wasn't on the small firm exchange. It was about small firm issues. And we happened to focus on humanizing firm management. And we took the small firm perspective because even though it wasn't geared specifically to small firms, there's oftentimes not like an HR person kind of in the middle of small firms. So it gave us kind of a real world example on how to speak to that. And so that's something that can also be explored within the conference work group. Okay. So our issues in the past, I took this from something, Matt Clapper's name was brought up. He was the chair who really spearheaded this new structure. And so I included these because I think these are still things that are in process. So the historical issues have been, we've had problems accessing the information that already exists within the AIA. So the AIA, like any very large organization made up of a lot of volunteers, the information is not always clear and easy to find. And so there's no central organization of the information right now. It is getting better. AIA, Kathleen, correct me if I'm wrong. I remember you saying they're revamping website stuff, I believe, in the near future. Is that still true?
And I'm sure we'll solve all the problems this time.
Exactly. So that kind of unorganized structure has led to, I think, some frustration. And so we're not going to solve this, but we can at least help funnel the things that are pertinent to small firms out to the AIA members who need that information. The other thing is there's been a siloing of information that has the groups recreating things, spinning its wheels. How do we address a certain topic? And so this idea of very little production. So I'm a systems thinker. And so my hope is that we can create some systems that make this easier and help solve this problem. So the focus areas that we've focused on, a lot of these last year and in years prior, but these are certainly the ones that stood out. And I looked at possibly editing this for this group because this was from last year, but I actually think it's still, everything on here is still very pertinent. And so we're not going to necessarily go through all of these, but when we have our, all calls or have our monthly meetings with state reps, we'll sometimes pick one of these as a topic. So I just wanted to share this with you all. There, I think, things that are always going to be topical. This is just a different list, similar stuff, a little bit more, outlined. And last year, ones that we had the opportunity to engage with were alternate project delivery methods for small firms, technology and tech platforms. We had a discussion around contracts when AIA Trust came. We had an insurance discussion. We talked about deregulation challenges in some of the all-call breakout sessions. So these are just some that I wanted to just show you so you can get a taste of the sort of thing that we'll be discussing this year. And within that, and Janet, I don't know, I didn't look at the agenda to see if you're talking specifically about this or if I should pause here for you.
I was going to do it after, get into a little more detail, but you can certainly introduce it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Janet, as the chair this year, presented and the board approved as a guiding topic, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So we are going to be structuring the all calls to either be topically around these or topic adjacent, I would say. And then for work groups this year, we've expanded our work group offerings, hence why we're expanding this to the state reps to be outreach, conference, advocacy, all calls. So this would be one that would specifically help with the who to invite to our all call meetings. And then, as Nate mentioned quickly, a sustainability 2030 commitment for small firms work group. So the idea around all of these, and we'll get into them specifically later, but the idea is that if you have a strong desire to tap into one of these, we want to make that available. You can also tap in for a few months. You can also show up once, kind of get the flavor of it if you want, but we wanted to make sure that you had access to these that was not available last year, and a lot of great conversation and content was generated within these work groups. And I should say the work groups are where I think we're going to hope to do the actions. So if you're somebody who doesn't want to sit on a Zoom call and just chat, and you want to be a little bit more boots on the ground, definitely that's what a work group is for. So as I'm just going to reiterate, advocate, share, and inform. That's kind of our mission. This is a photo from when we got to meet all together last year. It was really fun, great time. We're going to hopefully be able to do that in San Francisco at AIA National this year. And then since this will be emailed out to you, this is just a reminder of the monthly connections. And then what currently we have as small firm resources on the SFX website. And oftentimes these will be put in chats dependent on things. And we're going to try and do a better job, I think, of keeping track of what the resources are as we find them. But what I'm hoping to do prior to emailing this out to everybody is just hyperlinking these so that you can just click on these prior to sending this out. So that will be coming. And now, any questions on what your role